So here we are looking at the Union Factory. It's a binding that we've ridden a lot over the last couple years and we really like. It's kind of just like Union Force with a little bit more mustard on it. And one of the things that just really make this binding great is there is, so minimal contact with the board. You pretty much have this, this disc, and that's kind of a solid contact with the board. You also have just a lot of shock absorption. You've got a pretty stiff torsionally and just unbendable, if you try to pull it straight back, you can't even get it to bend. But I'm not one of those strong men, tearing Bibles in the name of the Lord. So maybe those guys could just take this and just twist it back. But for me, I just, I can't get it to do anything, and it barely twists. I've got two pair, because what I do is comparing two boards, I take two Union Factory and two Union Factory, put them on different boards, different brands that are like similar, so it's just, same boots, same bindings. It's great that way. It's a lot easier for us to understand how, a boot turns different, how a board turns differently with the same equipment. One thing new this year that I really like is the toolless toe and toolless ankle. They already had kind of a toolless ankle. It's this weird little twist thing. This year they just have, I can't get that one to go, but this one they do. They just have this little twister here. One drawback though that I've noticed is this thing here, this piece, is a lot shorter than last year's model. Last year's model went a lot further. So I found that there are some adjustability issues, like centering the boot perfectly. Some have problems with it, some don't. But what the cool thing is, and I still recommend this binding, but what the cool thing is you can contact Union or C3 and buy or just ask for an older part. I think you can go to C3 and buy it for just a few bucks. And then it extends this ankle strap out, and it's got the same adjustability as it has from the 2014 and below model. There's a little cant in here, which I love canting. It's one of, I think, two bindings in Union's line that has a cant, and it just, it's just a mellow cant. It's nothing major, but it just helps align your legs with a wider stance, because especially if you're like somewhere out in Europe or Poland, you're like 24, 25 inch stance, that's just gnarly, but it helps. But here with us, for most people who are like 21 to 23 and a half, maybe 24 if you're super tall, you just get a nice lean in there. These are very responsive. They sit up a little higher on the board than a lot of the other Union bindings, but just after a few turns you get used to it. I don't even notice it anymore. There's really quick edge-to-edge turn initiation, and they're not bad for a butter. I love this ankle strap because it's a little bigger than the higher-end bindings this year. It gives a little more support around the ankle, kind of holds it in a little better. And it doesn't, like the older small straps kind of just feel like sometimes you've just got too much freedom, and you hit a bunch of really uneven terrain and you're kind of powering through it. It feels like sometimes even a stiff boot folds a little bit and it pushes a little too much pressure on my ankles. And some of my other riders have felt the same thing. They want a little more support. So I love that they have this it's kind of thin. It's not super thin, but it's pretty thin. And it's got a good fit, but it still allows you a little bit of freedom of movement. It's a nice balance between being locked in and having, freedom to tweak and be you when you're up on the hill. Love all the padding. This is pretty stiff padding, but it's all foam, and you can see, it covers most. This is, the hard material, but it stops about right there. and most of your heel sits on the foam. You know, your boot heel sits on the foam, so it really helps with shock absorption. As you can see, I thought these were going to be a little more red, as you can see in the pictures, but they're pretty orange. Still look sick. Love them. And these are bindings that I like to pair up with more aggressive boards, like, you know, like free ride boards, aggressive all mountain, boards that have like a more aggressive turning, you know, more like challenging to turn. But they also work really well with like a moderate turning board or even some easy turning boards. They work pretty well. They're pretty quick edge to edge, and they're decent on a butter for sure. And you know, just a good all-around binding. Union, you know, they make a very easy binding to just put on and ride. There isn't a lot of adjustability that you need to do. You know, you probably want to adjust the heel loop to fit your boot, so you know the toe hangs out about the same as the heel, and it's one of the only companies that can do that. You also have high back rotation. I don't know if you can see this, but there are three holes here, so you can rotate your high back if you want to. Most people don't. It's a little difficult to get these long screws out, but you can. Forward lean's very easy to just, you know, tighten and loosen and dial out. It's toolless now, so I like these toe straps. I like how they fit over the boot. You know, I already talked about the ankle strap. So, you know, basically you have a really good binding for those that want something either plug and play, or if you want to take the time to dial it out and adjust it, you can, for more aggressive boards.